Welcome to You Don't Know Ball. Today, we are in our last division for team previews, the NFC West. As always, if you don't know ball and want to know ball, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, let us know in the comments who you think will win the NFC West. We're going to get into our narratives right now. Let's start off with the Arizona Cardinals. Our narrative for the Arizona Cardinals is, are the Cardinals a wild card team? Are they a wild card team, Dobbs? Do you think they can be?
I think, and let's just be honest, right? There's really no yes or no. I think it's one of the toughest questions you could ask an NFL fan right now. But what makes it interesting is that there's valid merit to either way you could answer it, right? Like, I could sit here and say, abso-fucking-lutely not. The Cardinals did not make enough moves. The Cardinals still are too young, and they're not experienced enough in the trenches to be able to make a jump this year. Or I could play on the contrary, and I could say, but this is Gannon's second year. We already saw the culture change in terms of how the Cardinals play with Gannon coming in.
Fire
we
in
can
the
say
gut.
they added guys. Wait, I'm sorry, what was
They
that?
have fire in the gut.
They literally have fire in their gut. Like, that's some shit. Like, what other coach is bringing fire to the gut of their players, right? So, like, that's an intangibles. We talk about intangibles. That's an intangible you just can't teach fire in the
That's
gut.
his Madden
But
badge. They
besides
need to
fire in
give
the gut,
coaches Madden badges.
they don't.
You know, like
We're
the
on to
X
something here.
Factor,
Hold on.
like the X Factor, fire in the gut.
Right. Write this shit down
Yeah,
immediately, right?
I'm a,
Andy Reid gets like the 4 for 4 package. Like, no, we're
I'm a
cooking. We're
DM
cooking.
Ocho Cinco.
Like,
Let him know right now.
yeah, no, we're cooking with this one. We're cooking with this one. All right, but back to the Cardinals. And look, here's the thing: playing the positive side of things. I could say to you, look, Trey McBride is turning into one of the best tight ends in the entire league. He could solidify himself as one of the casuals. Brace yourself. He could push himself in the top three. One of the best players in the NFL territory this year if he can replicate what he did the second half of last year, right? Because again, Trey McBride's one of those names where I feel like a lot of people still are. They got to get learn the name quickly because Trey McBride's coming on here. And you know what? If Jonah Williams can make a big jump and can finally shake that injury bug, you added a productive O-line member. And, Paris Johnson, if he can make a big jump this year, all of a sudden the tackle situation actually looks relatively good. And the final caveat that I haven't even mentioned yet, right? The most important thing is that Kyler Murray has shown that he can truly put the team on his back, like on the squat rack, and just somehow, some way with his small frame, just carry this team. And we've seen it for first half of seasons before the Cliff Kingsbury offense just gets way too predictable and teams are all over it, which is basically what's already right back to the Cliff Kingsbury era. It's already what's happened. But we've seen that Kyler has talent. He has ability that cannot really be replicated by anyone else. Even in terms of, yes, okay, guys like Lamar. Kyler has a different kind of, he just has a different archetype of scrambling. It's just hard to explain unless you're watching it. But if you watch him, you know what I'm saying. And the bottom line is Kyler being back on this team, yeah, they don't have all the bells and whistles, and they're not the loudest team. But you know what? To be a wild card team, I do think that they could have the pieces if Kyler Murray can just replicate that same success that we saw back in the first half of those seasons in the Cliff Kingsbury era. It's 100% possible because I have a lot more faith in Gannon than I did in Kingsbury.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things is I am interested to see how much Kyler is willing to use his legs. I don't know how much he's going to scramble coming off that injury. I do think that is what makes him kind of a dangerous quarterback. Now, I do think Kyler Murray is a pretty good quarterback. I think he's one of the more overhated QBs in the NFL, let's say. I think a lot of people don't like Kyler for whatever reason, and he's actually pretty good. I would want him as my franchise quarterback. Maybe not over some people, but he's not a bad guy to have. And I think with kind of what they did with Jonah Williams, I think if he can come in, I think they have a pretty stacked. I don't want to say stacked actually. Let's move this back. I do like their wide receiver room quite a bit actually. I think Michael Wilson as the 2 after what he did last year. Greg Dortch. I mean, I feel like they might miss Rondale Moore a little bit, but we saw today, unfortunately, that he has a season-ending injury. We don't know if that would have happened if he was in Arizona. Um,
Right.
but with Trey McBride basically being your wide receiver too, and then you can bring in Trey Benson to run with James Conner. Like I really like the future of this team, and after hiring Monty Ossenfort, the future of the Cardinals changed so drastically. Like the Cardinals to me have always been one of those teams where it's like no matter what they do, it's like I don't trust their organization. This team has done such a 360 so fast. They added such a blue chip talent in Marvin Harrison Jr. The line is better. Like they still have a lot to do on defense. Like a lot to do. I do like Sean Murphy Bunting, who they signed, Max Melton, Buda Baker. Like they have decent players in the secondary, but that defensive line is tough. But, hopefully Gannon can elevate them. And I think if the Cardinals get on a good run this year, there is a chance that they could be a wild card team. Okay. Let's say they take one versus Seattle. I mean, the NFC is getting stronger than what it used to be. It's not a pushover like, it used to be. But they got Carolina, they got New England, they got Seattle twice, they got Minnesota, they have the Chargers, they have Washington. Like, if they can win, I mean, they beat Dallas last year, and we know Dallas is kind of like flip floppy, like wishy washy. But I mean, I don't think it's crazy to say that the Cardinals could possibly make a push for the 7th seed if they get hot.
No, it's definitely not. And what I wanted to say real quick, while we're like on the defense for a second, is they're also the D line is very interesting. We're kind of like the Broncos, we were talking about earlier in the last video. It's kind of like they have a very interesting strategy schematically going on where they kind of also basically have like the two who should be interior backers playing that edge role in Zaven Collins and then Dennis Gardeck. But I'll say, look, Dennis Gardeck's been playing in that position for a while. He is built like an interior linebacker. I mean, he's 6 foot 230. Look, and to his credit, he's the definition of hot or cold. Like some games, some games Dennis Gardeck's on fire, and you're like, oh my god, he's actually like a really good edge. And some games it's like, all right, he's getting killed today, and he's just not playing good. Right? He's the definition of hot and cold. But kind of like to the Broncos, they make it work, and it's I can't even say that yet actually because we haven't seen Zaven Collins besides practice. But word is right out of camp and everything, it's going relatively good, and the experiment it's going to translate into regular season. So we're going to see an edge duo of Zaven Collins and Dennis Gardeck, which is going to be very, very interesting. But to your point about that interior of the D line, it's probably where a majority of the cap's going to go into next year's draft, kind of like what the Jaguars did this year. If we're kind of talking about trying to crystal ball what a team's plan will be for the 2024-2025 season. But right, as far as this year goes, yeah, are the Cardinals going to win the Super Bowl? No. But can Marvin Harrison have a historic rookie season? Can Kyler get back to old form? And can we see that these offseason signings paid it forward, that it's going to have an impact on this team down the road? Absolutely. And if all three of those things can happen, I think we can soundly agree that the Cardinals have put themselves on the right trajectory in the NFC.
I think they'll be one of the faster rebuilds in the NFL if their draft picks hit this year and they have a good draft next year.